with another interview. We have Crystal here from Community Counseling Center, and she is going to tell us more about her career in the counseling and mental health field, and then provide you additional information about that. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Crystal.
Okay, so my name is Crystal McLain, and I am currently the School-Based Services Supervisor, which means that I oversee between 12 to 13. We have an additional position open. So 13 staff in 5 counties, St. Genevieve County, Perryville, Madison, Bollinger, and Cape. And so I oversee all of them. Their job is to go into the school and meet with clients in the schools, and all ages from 5 to 18 years old. And so they go in and they talk with kids there, because oftentimes parents can't get kids to appointments every single week. And we generally focus on the kids who are struggling with potentially being expelled or suspended, who have in-school behaviors.
You do a lot.
We do a lot. We are constantly busy, yes.
So what does training and education look like for this? What was your path, and maybe what are some of the people that you oversee? What do they have, and certain degrees that you need for school-based counseling or maybe counseling in general?
Sure. So actually, my path was I got my bachelor's at Southeast Missouri. I got a psychology bachelor's, and I decided I really enjoyed family therapy. So I wound up going to Chicago to get my marriage and family therapy degree. And of course, if you know counseling, any part of the educational process, there was also the years of supervision to get a license. Now, as far as school-based services, our agency only requires a master's, but it can be a master's in social work, psychology, or even school counseling, because school counselors can get their LPC. And so we encourage that to get their NCE taken care of and go towards their PLPC and their LPC, and we help with all of that in this agency. As far as counseling, there are so many paths. So if you are coming straight out of high school, there are actually paths in the substance use field where you don't have to get your degree, because I was in that field for about 15 years. So there are paths that direction. There are also paths for those who just want to get their bachelor's. And so that's case management, where you're going in the home, you're talking with the clients all the time. So it's a very rewarding job. It's a very busy job. And then as you progress to your master's, your kind of world opens up. You can get jobs in hospitals, at community centers, and outpatient. And as soon as you're licensed, you can get a job at a private practice. So there are several different paths. The one that opens up the most is your master's. Mm-hmm. But if you're not interested in all that schooling, because it is a lot of schooling, you can stop at your bachelor's, and you may even be able to kind of get in on the ground floor with your high school degree. Substance use facilities need group educators, where you're just educating people about how to use coping skills, and you can do that with your high school diploma.
So can you talk more about that? Like, do we have any of that here in Missouri? Maybe what is the salary, or if it's hourly, what does that look like?
So if you're coming right out of high school, you're probably looking at anywhere between $10 and $15 an hour. $15, you're talking probably the bigger cities. Mm-hmm. So just straight out of high school, if you want to do group education, you can do that in any residential facility. So not even just substance use, you could do it in an adolescent program. Substance use is where most of my training is. And so we would have people with their high school education, and they would come in and they would teach coping skills. They would teach things, fun things to clients, maybe take them out to different activities. The pay is pretty good. you will work nights and weekends. That's the unfortunate part, but sometimes that's even rewarding to be able to see clients in an environment that isn't necessarily clinical. Um, so you can do that right out of your high school education if you want to just kind of get your feet wet in the counseling field before you make a decision on, is this something I really want to do?
So you kind of led on that you've been in this field for a long time. What drove you to be in this field of just counseling? I know you mentioned family counseling, but now you're in school-based. So what led you to this?
Oh goodness. I was going to be an architect, but then
Oh, that's a switch.
a huge switch. I did not like the math as much, and I found myself more drawn to people's stories. And I found myself kind of drawn to the concept of family therapy because I don't believe that there's any one person that is an issue within a family. You know, it's a whole dynamic. If I can get just a little thing to change in the family, this other person's whole life could be different. And so I went into that, and I did that for, I'm still sort of doing family therapy with School Based, but I did that for a very long time. I did it mostly in a substance use facility. And so families would come in and we would talk about family therapy as it pertained to drugs and alcohol. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed the challenge of people more than I enjoyed the challenge of building something. It's more complex, there's more to it. And so it was much more interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's go on the challenging side of things. What is maybe the most challenging part of your job? But can you also lead into maybe the different topics that you work with families regarding anything from me? I know you've mentioned substance abuse can be a big one, but I'll let you kind of lead into, I think the wheels are already turning about the different topics that you work with families with and students.
So we work with the families to understand mental health because it is sometimes very hard for them to really grasp what mental health means. We talk to them about the biology of it, about the fact that it is intergenerational. So, you know, you may not have depression, but your grandmother did. And so this is how genetics work. We also talk with them about supporting their child in some areas, a lot of parenting skills as far as family therapy goes. And then we also have a lot of family therapy sessions where the kid gets a chance to actually talk to their family about what's going on with them. And they get to open up and get that support with a counselor involved because, you know, we say things we mean, but like not in the right way for people to hear. And that's oftentimes the problem with kids is they'll say something and it's like, well, but no, you're telling me you're scared. Yes, I'm scared. I was shaky. And that's easier for a parent to hear. So we do family therapy with them. I have done all kinds of family therapy, in-home, intensive in-home. You know, it just, you can pretty much imagine. I've been doing this a very long time. But as far as the challenges of our school-based services is usually the parent. And so that's why we like to incorporate them into services too, because if you've got a parent who says, well, little Jimmy just gets in trouble at school all the time and he doesn't have any problems at home, well, but there might be something going on that he's not talking to you about. Or one of the challenges is, you know, they're having a bunch of problems at home and it's just the kid's problem. And so there's oftentimes we talk to the parent about it's everybody's problem, you know, like there's something going on that they're not expressing to you appropriately. What we're going to do is teach the kid how to express himself appropriately. And then we're going to bring that into a session together and talk to you about how they can talk to you more. And it works beautifully most of the time. I get a lot of parents who just kind of skirt away from me when I call. And so that's been really only the biggest challenging part of this, is trying to make sure the parents actually call back. But honestly, it's really not a huge issue, but it's probably one of the biggest barriers.
Now, so what advice would you give like high schoolers or people who are just in the career exploration stage? Like if you were talking to 16-year-old Crystal and you're given advice as an adult and a school-based counselor and therapist, what would you say to these students?
I would say shadow, do some shadowing, do some internship if you can. If there's a possibility for you to shadow just one day of somebody doing a counseling position. If you're still not sure whenever you get into college, do some more, do some of those jobs that I've talked about where you can get in with just your high school diploma and see if you really like it. One of my professor in grad school, there were only 8 of us in the one program. It was a very small graduate program. And so he actually said the very first day, there are 8 of you, there will only be 3 to 4 of you actually practicing after your first year of your master's program. Because what happens is people go into a master's thinking, all right, this is what I want to do. And then you really get into it. And it is very taxing on your time sometimes. It is very taxing on your heart sometimes. And I've kept up with my 8, and there are still 5 of us doing counseling career.
Wow, he was wrong.
Yes, there were 3 that within the first year dropped off. There's one that only does it part-time, and there's 2 that do private practice. And then there's the other 2 of us, and we're still in the thick of it. So there are a lot of people who get into it to help fix, and I highly suggest that that's what you want to do, try first, because fixing's not the way to counsel. It's just guiding people through what they need help with, and to be able to take that and separate it from your normal life is very hard. So making sure you kind of learn that, and like I said, a lot of shadowing.
So how would students go about that, especially with, confidentiality and, here in Cape Girardeau, at least, we're a very tight community too, where everybody knows everyone. So, what is your suggestions for students if they are kind of curious about this?
Yeah, so they just would have to contact the HR in any of the agencies and kind of talk about, I'd like to shadow. We do interns. We have interns every year, so we have master's level and bachelor's level. And so there are just forms that you sign for HIPAA to make sure that you understand you can't say anything outside of that day. And there's lots of that as well at other facilities here in town. And so, just calling and checking to see how it goes. If you're further north, of course, calling their HR programs and seeing, is there any way I can shadow? I'm really interested in counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have interns and master's level practicum students who are shadowing all the time. And sometimes they get into school-based and they're like, well, I don't really like all this. So then we find them another little program to kind of shadow to see if they like that as well.
So you guys are very adaptable about,
Yes.
like, if someone's just not feeling the school-based stuff, well, instead of letting them sit there for a semester or a year, well, let's move you to this other sector.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some people don't like the rush of school-based.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you do a lot. Trust me, I'm already tired from what you told me. Now, my final question is, I know you help other people with coping skills and staying well. In this field, and you mentioned how it can be a little taxing on your heart and sometimes your mind too. How do you stay well? How do you, you mentioned how some of your peers from your cohort from grad school, either do this part-time or, they're just not in this anymore. So how do you stay in this deep end and you're just still swimming? What does that look like for you?
You really have to learn self-care. There was a master's level program that really taught me very well about how to do self-care, and not just self-care, but sometimes I take a little bit longer trip home so that I can unwind from whatever the day is, and put it in a box on a shelf in my mind. And in the morning, I can get that box down. But for the evening, I'm not thinking about work. It's way up here. If I'm extra tired, I take the time to nap. Obviously not during work, but I do, take that time for myself. So you got to just make sure your mind, body, and spirit are all, getting appropriate self-care. And whenever, you're extra stressed, doing extra self-care. And so, taking the weekend entirely off from anything related to work, turning your phone off, turning the TV off, going outside, the things that we all kind of forget to do, that are good for our mind, body, and spirit.
Awesome. Crystal, well, thank you so much. I hope our students learned a lot more, not just about school-based therapy, but also the other avenues regarding counseling. So thank you very much.
Thank you.